Hi, I'm John Pasalis, housing analyst and founding broker at Realosophy Realty, where I lead our team of agents in providing data-driven real estate advice to home buyers and home sellers throughout Toronto and the Greater Toronto area. We launched this Toronto Real Estate Summit because we're getting a lot of questions from consumers about the volatility in our economy and our housing market that was brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. So we're going to be talking to leading economists, housing industry leaders, personal finance experts, and real estate agents to get a better understanding of what's going on in our markets today and what are some of the key things that we should be looking for in the months ahead so you can all make smarter real estate decisions. If you have more specific questions about your home buying and selling needs, please feel free to email me anytime at askjohn@movesmartly.com, and I hope you enjoy this interview.
Welcome to the Toronto Real Estate Summit here. My name is Mei Chen. I'm a sales representative for Realosophy Realty. I will be your host today. We're really excited today to discuss the current market condition with our panelists. So firstly, I'll pass it over to our panelists to introduce themselves. So Gus, why don't you start?
Sure. My name is Gus Papaioannou. I have been with Realosophy Realty for going on 5 years now. Been in real estate for 5 years as well. I generally do residential real estate throughout Toronto and the GTA.
Great. And Nasma?
Yeah. My name is Nasma. I'm with One Group. I'm the founder of One Group with Sage Real Estate Brokerage. We're a team of about 8 agents and a bunch of admin and a stager. I think we're just about 2 years old as a team. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And my name is Asif Khan, and I'm with Remax Prime Properties. I'm the owner of the brokerage. I've been a sales representative since 2005, and we have 23 agents here. I have a little team at the office, and looking forward to this. Thank you.
Fantastic. So I'm very excited. We have our panelists. They're all experts in the industry. So I'll dive right into the first question here. Can you walk us through what the GTA's housing market was like pre-COVID?
It was hot. In a word. Okay, well, I'll go. It was from January, February, up until mid-March. There was really low inventory, and I'm just speaking Toronto, downtown and surrounding areas, like Etobicoke, Leslieville beaches. There were multiple offers on properties, and easily they were selling way more than they were selling in November and December. So just 1 month prior, properties could be selling 50,000 more in January than in December. Like if we were looking at condos, the comps from December and November meant nothing. I sold a condo and I had 22 offers. There was a house, same thing, listed at 1.1. They had 20 offers and it sold for $2 million. So it was very low supply, and it was multiple offers to the point where regular buyers, regular as in they have healthy budgets. I told them just wait for spring. There's gonna be a lot more inventory. And then COVID happened, and then,
Yeah, I saw similar trends. Very busy January, February, going into March. First half of March was busy as well. I think the main difference between what happened the first 2.5 months of the year versus what's happening now is the condo sector. Not that it's slow, but it is slower. I do recall it was busier. Condos were selling a lot quicker with a lot more interest in the beginning of the year than they are now. But it was definitely busy.
And we saw the same in the north part of the GTA as well. It was a trend that started in late fall of last year, and it continued through. There was a lot of pent-up demand with people sitting on the fence and trying to weigh their options after what happened in 2018, the early part of 2019. We saw the trend upwards heading into 2020, and the consumer confidence had returned to the market, and that fed the market. Demand was high, supply was low, and as we got into the COVID period, early March, we started to see people pulling their homes off the market or not putting them on the market. And March continued to be strong from a buyer's perspective because they were still scooping up properties because a lot of these people had already sold or had already purchased and had to make that move. So we saw that continue through March, and that fueled it leading into the slowdowns in April and May.
Okay. So as if you sort of answered my next question here. So there was that stop in mid-March. How did buyers and sellers respond to the state of emergency in mid-March when there was that pause?
See, it was very different than previous pauses that we had. And that's a great word that you used, was it was a pause, whereas it wasn't a slowdown or a shutdown of the market that we saw in 2008 or previous recessionary periods where people were scared, they didn't have income, or they had lost their jobs. People knew here that this was just a pause and they were just on hold rather than being shut down. So I think the attitude heading into COVID was, we're just gonna wait, and once this is over, we'll get back to normal. So again, it was very different than previous recessionary periods or slowdowns where that was more drastic and people were scared. There wasn't a lot of fear in terms of, am I gonna be able to purchase a house or not? Because they knew even the layoffs were temporary.
Did everyone else see the same thing with how buyers and sellers responded to the state of emergency?
So I mean, it was a pause. I did, I think a lot of people, I saw more concern. I did see some concern in probably not until April, but buyers thinking prices are falling, are going to fall, maybe an opportunity there. People who were in the midst of thinking of selling and weren't on the market yet, they were concerned. They were concerned. Sellers who were like preparing their homes ready for market were like, uh-oh, what's going to happen? Or people who were exactly listed at the end of March. So I do think there was some concern there, but I mean, overall, as we can see now, it's returned to, you know, where it's gone and buyers are back in. But at the time, there was concern.
I'll say what I noticed. I remember, so it was like every week was different. I had a listing the week before the shutdown, and it was like cheap, and we knew we were gonna get multiple offers. It was actually in Scarborough, and I got a bully, and I said, no, we're gonna wait for offer day, and offer day was literally after they announced we're gonna shut down. And so I kind of made an executive decision in that weekend. I called my client. I said, hey, I know we said no to this bully, but I think we need to go back because I really have no guarantee how it's going to be. And there were a ton of showings. And I remember I called, there was like, I don't know, 50 people. I called all 50 agents just to make sure that if we take this bully, we're not leaving any money on the table. Nobody else was going to come in more. I would say at the time, this is like right at the beginning of like this whole talk about like shutdown. At the time, the agents, none of them even talked about COVID or whatever. There was probably a handful, like less than 5 agents said, my client's worried with what's happening with COVID and everything, and they're gonna stop. So they're not interested anymore. And after the shutdown was kind of official, and we sold, you know, great price. After the shutdown was official, and it was really like we had no idea what was happening. Nobody was even laid off yet. It was just more of a, like people were saying there's going to be some layoffs if this goes on longer. That first 2 weeks, so the mid-March until end of March, I remember this very well. And my business is usually, and I'm not saying this to brag, I'm just saying my business is usually nonstop, you know, bombardment from every direction, right? Every day. For 2 weeks, silence. And it was, and I was thinking, how long is this gonna be 6 months? Is this gonna be 9 months? Is this gonna be the rest of the year, like complete silence? And I don't know if you guys remember, in those 2 weeks, we as agents did not want to talk to people about selling or buying or whatever. The only because it was just insensitive. The only people I reached out to were the people that I was working actively, right, to try to find them something. And I told them, hey guys, like, I don't know. I just want to see where you're at. You probably want to stay home, but let me know what you want to do. And they were just like, yeah, we're not going anywhere. We're not going to do showings. And so most of them just stopped. So it was very quiet. And like you said, also a lot of buyers thought it was going to crash. I thought it was going to crash. Not crash, but I mean, I knew there was going to be some little 10, 20%. And that happened in the condo market, actually. So the prices did go down. April and May, and we had a bunch of listings in this time also, but yeah, it was very quiet. And I think but I don't know if that's your next question, but even until now, we have buyers who don't, well, I think that's one of your questions. I'll leave it for later, but I think now more than the first 2 weeks, people are losing their jobs more and more. The first 2 weeks, nobody was losing their job. They were just kind of like, it could happen. But I think in April, May, June, up until now, more and more people are losing their jobs. And we have clients in the past 2 weeks, 4 active clients. One of the 2, or if it was a single person, they lost their job. And so they have stopped. So it's still happening up until now that people are losing their jobs and they can't buy. So anyway.
That's really interesting. So, I mean, this is not on the list of questions, but I'm curious what you think about the fall market, because there's a lot of speculation out there that maybe a lot of people will continue to lose their jobs going into the fall market, and it might actually be a little bit slower. What do you think about that?
For what we're seeing in the north part of the GTA, people are active. We're selling, all of our listings are selling for between 100 and 110% over asking, because there's so much demand over here. We have less than 2 months of supply. So as we finished up June and headed into July, even the first part of July was very active here. And there's no catalyst to make that stop, right? And people that are losing their jobs, they're temporary layoffs. It's more of a corporate decision to take advantage of government systems and things like that. A lot of people that did lose their jobs around here are being rehired because employers are taking advantage of the 75% subsidy that the government is giving to bring their employees back. The other thing is, this is very different. It's atypical, right? Because the government was giving everyone pretty much $2,000 a month in order to survive through this pandemic. And people got, at least $8,000 because they got it for 4 months. Whereas in a recession previously, or 2008, you weren't getting that money. So if you were laid off, you were really laid off. Here, even if you were laid off, you're still making $2,000 a month. And that helped to support people to get through this period. And the one thing that we're facing here is, with the borders closed, there's not a lot of foreign people coming in to buy in the Markham, Richmond Hill areas. So that is affecting us. But at the same time, our supply is so limited. And if you think about housing starts, anything that wasn't under construction was stopped. So a lot of these new builds that hadn't started and are just about to launch, they were either postponed, maybe a few months, some of them by a year. So think about what that's going to do to inventory moving forward, even into the fall market, winter market. We're still going to be faced with this inventory crisis, a supply crisis, and demand is still continuing to remain strong. Even if demand drops off a little bit, it's still going to far outweigh supply. And that's going to continue to fuel the bidding wars and the multiple offers, and prices are going to continue to increase. I mean, in Markham, we're seeing, in York region as a whole, every municipality has shown an increase over the first 6 months of 2020 versus the first 6 months of 2019. So that's a pretty big cross section. We're not just looking at a month or two, we're looking at 6 months. And every municipality has shown an increase, and York region as an average has shown a price increase of 12%. So if people were sitting on the fence and waiting and it keeps going up, that's a lot of buying power that they're losing. So it's in their best interest for buyers to be acting now.
Okay, so then my next question is, how has the market evolved since mid-March? It sounds like it's very active, it's really busy. where is the market now? Would you say that the market is as competitive as it was before, or it's less competitive, more competitive?
Oh yeah, go on.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I want to add something to what Asif was saying, but yeah.
Actually, so did I, but we can
Yeah,
add.
there you go, right? Let's add our own 2 cents to
Go
it.
ahead.
Go ahead. No,
Ladies
you
first.
please
No,
go.
no.
No, you please go.
Okay, I just want to, sorry, May, I don't mean to ignore your question, but I just want to add to what Asif said. I mean, I do think there's no way you can really predict the market, okay? You can't. Economists have been trying it for a very, very long time, for decades, and the few that have gotten it right have gotten it right because they've been saying the same thing over and over for half a dozen years, and hey, they got it right. So no, we don't know where the market's going. We're not sure. I'm not sure that it's going to be busier or prices will sustain or prices will go higher in the fall. What I tell people is if you're buying long-term, if you're buying to stay 5, 10, 15, 20 years, be cautious, but worry about buying the home that you're going to stay in for the long run. And this way, if prices fall, you're protected. You're in your home. You can afford it when you bought it. You should be able to continue to afford it as long as your job hasn't been affected, obviously. If prices go up, well, then you're in a great position. And the other thing I would say is just on that note is watch the months of inventory. I know, Asif, you mentioned that. Months of inventory, meaning how much inventory is available for sale. At the moment, we have about 2 months, actually 1.68 in Toronto to be exact, 2 months in the GTA, which means if nobody sells their home tomorrow, if no other homes go on the market tomorrow, we will have 2 months worth of inventory and we will be sold out of all home types, condos, townhomes, freeholds. So that's a seller's market. If we get up to 5 or 6 months, it's a flat market. It's everybody can kind of take their time to buy. If we get up to 8 or 9 months, which happened to Vancouver last year, it became a little bit more of a buyer's market. You can slow down, you could take your time looking at homes, you have more choice. And when that happens, well, prices could fall. So right now we're in a seller's market. Watch the months of inventory. If that rises in the fall because of more unemployment, which is possible, because CERB runs out, mortgage deferrals run out, and demand could slip. And my last point is this: demand was held in March and April. It just was paused, as we said. So all those people looking just stopped, paused, watched the market. May and June started, and those people woke up and said, let's get back in the market. Well, now those people came in, the regular spring buyers dove in, and we have a new buyer. We have the buyer that now has decided they want to move from the city to the suburbs. So you got all this huge demand, people not listing because of basically kind of being scared of COVID and not being sure about having people in their houses, low inventory, and that's why we're seeing what we're seeing now. Will that continue into the fall? It's a bit of a guessing game, and I'm concerned about the economy.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Exactly what I was going to say.
You should have went first.
You said it so much better than me. English is my third language, so I'm trying hard. But you know what? What he said exactly, which is when Asif said that, yeah, there's, so much demand, multiple offers, 100% right. But I think it's exactly what Gus is saying, is that it's pent up demand. And a lot of my clients, yeah, they were kind of like on the sidelines during COVID. But even if they weren't, there was nothing out there. People weren't going to sell in April, and it was only people that kind of needed to. But all these people, everybody from spring, first of all, not just from spring, everybody from January that has been missing out on all those multiple offers, they were waiting for spring. And then spring never came. And now add to that the spring buyers. And now we're here. So that's why we have all of the best time to have sold was June, when we started reopening. That was the absolute. Now, every day I see in specific areas that used to have like 3 or 4 new listings a day. Now, every day I see 25, 27 new listings in that specific area. There's, tons of inventory already. And it's only 1 month after the reopening. And then we know very well in September what happens. There's an influx, even more. And not only that, August is here, or coming right around the corner. We've been deprived of spring, and we're Canadian. We're deprived of good weather. And so we now have like 1 month left of summer. Do you think most buyers, do you think they're all going to be out looking for houses, or do you think they want to enjoy the last few weeks of summer? They're going to want to enjoy the last few weeks of summer. And usually in August, we have kind of a slowdown, and it's in waves. Like real estate is in waves every year. Like I remember last year in August, I had the worst time trying to sell a condo that now would have been sold like in a minute, right? But it's just waves. So August is going to be a little bit slower in terms of people wanting to buy, and that's only going to kind of accumulate the supply. And then September, more supply. And then the other thing about the jobs, the issue is that I know you're saying that some people were temporarily laid off. I think half the people we've spoken to were not temporarily laid off. They were probably temporarily laid off because the company didn't have the heart to completely like cut them out. But a lot of the people that we've spoken to are actually terminated. They are let go. And, marketing, that's like the first thing that goes, advertising, all of that, graphic design, all the like extras. I have friends and clients who have executive roles making 6 figures. They have been let go and they have a mortgage. They're not paying their mortgage. They've deferred that. And their deferral runs up in October or November. When I talk to them, how's the interview process? They're not even getting interviews. Nobody's hiring. And if they are, there's like a huge amount of people looking for jobs. I don't think all of these people are going to get a job by the time their mortgage comes back. And the bank is not a charity. They're not going to say, oh yeah, you want another 6 months? That's fine. Like I know a lot of people from September to November, they're going to need to sell in that time. And that's only going to add to the supply that we already have. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to be the same level, which is good. I mean, it's great for our buyers. It's not great for our sellers, but I mean, it'll be great for our buyers, for some of them to try to get in. That doesn't mean it's going to crash. That doesn't mean it's going to be 50, people are going to slash their prices by half. But I think there's going to be a little more negotiation involved in purchasing in the coming months. That's what I think.
Sorry, you might have to repeat that question there, May, that last one. We just totally veered to the left.
It's really interesting to hear different perspectives, and we can see how Canadian we are when, like you go first and I go first. Really Canadian of us. So my question before is where's the market now? Is the market as competitive as it was before, or would you say it's less competitive? So I think we sort of answered that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super competitive. We all agreed. Super competitive.
Yeah, super competitive right now. It sounds like all across the GTA, downtown. So how are the following markets performing in terms of the different segments, the condos, the houses downtown, the 905 market? Asif, do you want to start with the...
Yeah, the 905 is thriving because, again, a lot of these people from downtown that were cooped up in condos are moving up. They want the land. They want to be able to take their kids outside to a backyard. And that's why cottage country is thriving too. I mean, cottage country sales are up 25% over the last little while. And that's because if people are going to be working from home, they want to enjoy where they're working from. So they're moving out of the condos, they're moving out of the smaller homes into the larger homes. Some of them are moving in with family just so that they have daycare because daycares are closed. A lot of people are homeschooling. And, one of the things that we're getting is, I need space in my home to work from, and a closed door or anything like that where they can get away from their kids, do their work. That's been a driving force in a lot of the people looking for new homes, is that they know that they're not going to go back to their 30,000 square foot office space that they had because their employers are going to downsize, because now they know that they can have people working from home. One thing that we've learned during the COVID period is we can work remotely and virtually. And that, I think the biggest shift in real estate is going to be in the commercial sector. And that's going to play out in the residential sector as these companies downsize the space that they have and people start to increase the space they have in their home to allow them to work from it. So the 905 has been, the detached market, which was pretty much the hardest hit market in late 2017, in 2018. That's really rebounded since COVID stopped, or since we entered phase 2 or whatever we're in right now. But the detached market has been what's driving the average price up, what's driving the sales. I mean, unit sales were still down, but that, we're down about 1,000 units over the first 6 months of last year compared to the first 6 months of this year. And that we're going to make up over the next quarter. The next quarter is going to be a driving force in how we finish this year. So it's either going to make the year or break the year, but I think we're going to make up those 1,000 units. And as detached homes go, it's going to continue to drive it because the mix is different now. Our mix over the last 2 years in the 905 there was a lot more condos being introduced to Vaughan, Markham, Richmond Hill. And with the average price of a condo in the 905 being about $500,000, $520,000, it was bringing our average price down in terms of the market because the mix had shifted because we never had condos in our markets before. It's pretty new. It's over the last 10, 15 years.
That's a great point.
Yeah, now we're getting back to detached homes, outselling condos, and that's where you're starting to see these huge increases in average price.
That's a really good point.
Did it ever rebound from 2017 prices?
We're now our monthly average. Oh, you're talking about 905?
Yeah, 905.
Go ahead, Asif.
Because I know we did. I mean, we rebound in the same year at the end of the year, but I don't know if
GTA average has, but
Yeah.
I'll let him speak to 905.
Yeah, so we're back over $1 million for the average price right now, which we hadn't seen in 2017. Started to bounce back at the end of 2018. And that was the transition from, a huge amount of condo sales to detached home sales or semi-detached home sales. But the other thing is there's a lot of condos that were introduced, like downtown Markham was just introduced a few years ago. So as you have these developments coming in, the Vaughan condos along the subway line, as they're selling, you're going to start to see, them take over the share of the mix. And if you're selling 30% condos or 35% condos, and before we were only selling 5 or 10% of condos, now you're starting to see that affect the average price. And that's why average price isn't a great point of determination for how the market's doing. But if we consider the mix and what the mix is doing to that, then it puts it into perspective.
Great. So, Nasma, how is the downtown housing market?
Depends. So houses, like High Park, Leslieville, beaches, like all of these areas are, I'm sure Gus, you would agree, it's like booming, right? Multiple offers. But just as a quick update, I mean, this week we're starting to see things that did not sell on offer night for what they wanted, and now they're relisting, which we did not see in June. Like when things reopened, everything was selling in tons of like multiples. Houses are still selling. Of course, if we're talking about under $1 million, 100% they're still selling. Condos took a huge hit. Condos downtown, and of course, I mean, condos downtown, that's going to, what's the right word? Not resonate, like kind of like a butterfly effect throughout the whole city. Because if I can buy, if downtown a 1-bedroom, let's say $550K, if that has dropped a little bit, why would I buy for $550K in Scarborough if I can buy $550K in downtown? Do you know what I mean? So like that of course is going to reflect on everywhere, even rental prices. So rentals is another thing. When COVID happened, one side effect was Airbnbs. And it's funny because we don't think of everything, all the repercussions. When COVID happened, we're thinking of all the repercussions. Airlines are going to go bankrupt. The economy is going to be terrible. And even this $2,000 a month, I mean, the government is printing money. We have yet to see the repercussions of this. I mean, I'm worried for taxes, for the economy. I mean, it's not like it's a Band-Aid and now it's gone. It's all better. We'll see how bad it gets.
We got to pay for it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. But anyway, one other side effect was Airbnb. And, it's funny because for a year, for 2 years, it's been this battle against Airbnb to try to about what happened when they started to they wanted to impose regulations. It has to be your primary residence. You have to pay some sort of fee because, the hotels were complaining that they're paying this commercial fee. And
maximum
anyway,
180 days. Yeah.
Yeah, 180 nights or whatever. So they were imposing all these things, and finally that was going to be implemented. And it's funny because, you know, all these Airbnb people, they're making tons of money. They're raking it in. You better believe they all have lawyers who are trying to figure out some loopholes, and they already have loopholes. So they already had loopholes lined up. These regulations were not scaring them. They were still going to go on. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you what their secrets are, but they had secrets, like on how to go around it legally, right? But what really stopped them was COVID. Leave it to a virus to like completely change everything. And this is something we didn't predict. I mean, there's 17,000, you know, Airbnb rentals. We used to have 0.7% vacancy downtown or like in the city for rentals. And so investment market was strong. We work with a ton of investors. And so we had it down, like the analysis of, you know, kind of your return and how much for rent for specific buildings and what you're going to. With COVID now, what happened is that all these Airbnbs, like these big buildings of ICE Towers and 5565 Bremner, all these like buildings that allowed Airbnb, they actually put out an announcement that no more short-term rental under like 30 days. And then recently they removed that June 5th. But for about 2 months, they had like stopped that. And so what did all the owners do? A small portion of them had either paid cash for this or had paid, you know, bought it for like 150K, have a very minimal mortgage on it. So they decided, I'm going to hold on to this and leave it vacant and ride this out. And then I come back on the other end with way less competition of Airbnb, right? And then another percentage, like maybe 25% of these people decided to sell, right, and liquidate. And then the 50 probably percent of those people said, I'm not selling this gold mine. Let me try to rent this out. So the rental market has literally, I mean, Airbnb flooded the rental market. And 5,000 units downtown for rent, unheard of. And every time I look, it just gets worse and worse, right? And I mean, it's great for tenants. But the issue is, you know, even landlords like myself, I was like, oh my God, are my tenants gonna be calling me saying they're gonna wanna go to the next one that's cheaper and bigger? And I was ready to reduce my rent because it's not worth having that vacancy and then trying to find somebody else. Rents went down to 2018 levels. So we were at $2,300 for a small 1-bedroom. And now you can find a 1-bedroom for $1,800. So, and easily, I mean, it's a race to the bottom. So anyway, that also affects investments because now when somebody's looking for an investment, a lot of our clients, they can't afford to have vacancy. And back then it made a little more sense at $2,300. They're, you know, $300 out of pocket, but now it's like they're $500 out of pocket or 600, like it doesn't even make sense. Now the best thing is to buy for an end user. If you're buying downtown a condo as an investment, you better have a tenant already living there paying rent. Don't buy a vacant condo. You're going to be stuck trying to find a tenant. But if you're buying as an end user, you have so much power. You can negotiate. But anyway, to make it short, which is already long, but the point is condos are definitely not at the February level. I sold a 1-bedroom with 1 parking for $750 and they got it for $605 last year. This would never happen now. Yes, they're selling with multiple offers. It's starting a little bit, but it's definitely not at the February level, whereas houses are at the February level. But yeah, sorry, that was like super long.
Yeah, just to add to that, yeah, I'm seeing investors try to get ahead of this and condo investors sell now to get ahead of this. And, you know, because they are concerned about the amount of inventory in condos. We're still not at a critical level. Condo inventory in the city is, in Toronto is at about 2.5, creeping up to maybe three months of inventory. That's still a seller's market. But, you know, as Nasma mentioned, leases, there's so many thousands of leases out there. You know, the worry is, are some of these investors going to pivot any moment and just say, okay, I can't lease it, let me sell it. And then if you get, I mean, even 10 or 20% of those 5 or whatever that number was, go to market for sale, is going to increase inventory considerably, which now forces prices to drop. Yeah. I don't think prices have dropped on condos downtown. They've kind of, if you look at the numbers, they're maybe minus 1 or 2% in the last month. They've kind of flattened out, but they're definitely not. I mean, you know, they were in February and March, they were up 18%.
18%.
crazy, right? And now we're like in a matter of 2 months, we're just flat. So they're heading in the wrong direction for investors, good direction for buyers. I recently had a 2-bedroom down at King and Shaw for sale. We priced it right. We were confident in the price. It took us 28 days to sell. We got our price, but we understood we had to be patient. Why? There were 35 other 2-bedrooms for sale within a 2-kilometer range in that area. So people had choice. They took their time.
When you say you were priced right, do you mean you were priced right based on today's market, or were you priced right based on February market? Because I'm sure it wasn't based on February market.
Because why? Sorry?
I'm sure it was not based on February market.
It was a combination of the two. We took in consideration what sold, the comps that sold in February. I like to look at them, even though you could argue, I mean, it's different now. But we also took into consideration the comps that sold in April. And then we kind of went in between. We said, okay, this one's too low. These ones sold high. Based on the market, this is, and we looked at the inventory available before we went to list. This is kind of where we should be. And we sold like, I think it was $6,000 under asking. So we were right there.
I just want to say one thing about the prices. I mean, I had a client that was trying to sell it at Queens Wharf, and in February it was $750. And then he called me at the last minute. He's like, I got a tenant, and he's paying like a lot of money because it's like a short term. And then what happened? COVID hit, all the prices went down for rentals. And so his tenant said, actually, I'm going to go to Bisha and I'm going to get like a really nice place for cheaper. So now he has no tenant. And we looked at prices, he could have gotten $750. And now, I mean, it was a race to the bottom, of course, because some people needed to sell. The cheapest one was $688, negotiable. So, I mean, that could have went to $650 versus $750 that he was trying to get. So I think some buildings, I mean, you can definitely not get February levels. But just to add to this, under 500,000, you're good.
Agreed. Anything lower priced is
flying off the rack. Like in 1 day, 2 days, it's gone. $399, offers anytime, multiple offer, you're good. But over 5 and 600, Regent Park taking a huge hit. 150, last I checked, it was 150 studios for lease, because my client was looking at studios to buy, but it's like there's so much, you're never gonna get leased out. So places without balconies. I have a condo with a Juliet. It's brutal. Like, who wants a Juliet now? People want a balcony. And like,
balcony and fresh air.
Yeah. But anyway.
So on the topic with working with sellers, what are your biggest concern or your top concerns working for seller clients right now?
I think it's setting the right expectation. I mean, there's a lot of negativity in the news right now with CMHC coming out with their 9 to 18%. I'm not sure which basement they got that report out of, but there's a lot of reports out there that is setting the wrong expectation for buyers and sellers. And I think our job is to educate them as to what's actually happening in the marketplace. I mean, I'm hearing some horror stories downtown, but up north, we don't have that same sentiment. There's a lot of positivity, consumer confidence is at a high, and our sellers, so, heading into January, February, March, we weren't even looking at 2017, 2018 prices because it was a very different market. We were back to looking at 2016 prices, which when the market was at a high, it was pre all of the changes that happened from the government, and 2020 started off at 2016 pricing for us. As we went into COVID, there was a lot of uncertainty for pricing because everything was on pause. So you didn't know which way it was going to go. June surprised everyone. I don't think there was anyone that would have predicted June to be on par with last June if you would have asked them at the end of March or even at the beginning of May. So I think we were caught off guard in a good way. And I think that has the positivity at a high right now, because we're starting to see that it was almost like we went to sleep March 15th and woke up June 1st and everything else just continued. And that's what we're seeing here is we're starting to see sellers want prices from 2016, and some of them are pushing the envelope and they want even more. And it's setting the expectations to say, Okay, we got to reel them in, and then buyers expecting to hold off because prices are going to fall because this is what they're being told, and they're losing buying power by waiting. So, they're coming back and saying, well, price went up again, price went up again. So even through the COVID period, prices were going up 3%, 4% during that time. So if they would have bought in March, or if they would have bought in April or May, they would have made that much in equity already. But that's buying power that's been thrown out the door. And now for them to wait, the whole CMHC thing of prices dropping about 18%, 9 to 18%, and then prices end up going up 12%. That's a 30% mistake on their part on predictions. And like Gus was saying, you can't predict it. So why predict something that drastic, right? Be a little more conservative, set the proper expectations for buyers and sellers out there, because they're relying on us to be able to set the tone.
Yeah, I think to touch on that, I mean, I agree in that it was, when we saw that number, CMHC, and 18%, it was a bit of an eye opener. But I mean, look, we don't know what's going to happen. The bottom could fall out, come fall. It's possible. I'm not saying it will. Given that the recession and everything going on, could numbers drop? Will we hit that 18%? Probably not. It's probably highly unlikely, because we would need huge negatives now with the gains that we've had. But it's also possible that they know something we don't, because they have certain data that maybe they haven't released to us, right? They may be seeing more people struggling to pay their mortgages, or more people like not keeping up than the data that we have. It's possible. But in terms of expectations and clients, I think patience is important. I think education is important. I think, explaining and understanding, explaining to clients, you got to buy within your comfort level, and keep in mind, you're buying for the long term. If you're dealing with an investor, it's a different story, different ball game, different conversation. But for someone who wants to live in the house long term, it is, look, yes, it's competitive. Yes, we're seeing tons of offers, but I'm not seeing people overpay by $100,000 the way they did in 2017. You guys agree? But we are seeing as many offers as we were getting in 2017. So we're still seeing, oh my goodness, they got 22 offers.
Cautious.
Correct.
They're all hovering around the same numbers.
Correct. Yeah.
Not like back then, you have one person 100,000 over everybody else.
You had a couple people over 100,000 over everybody else, even, because they were like, and money was easier to get back then, right? So I think that's an important thing to explain, and understanding how to manage and break down the offer process and the multiple offer process. That's the key. Too many buyers just don't even want to get into multiple offers. And I think it's important to walk them through the pitfalls of being in a multiple offer, and what you can control and what you can't control. Control what you can control in a multiple offer, and don't worry about the rest, and put your best foot forward, and try to get your emotions in check, and you probably won't get emotional and be one of those people that overpays.
I want to say one thing. I agree with like both of you guys. For sellers, what we saw is just like, I had a few sellers that were kind of thinking of selling before COVID, and we've been talking. How much is your house worth? I'll give you an example. One of them, I mean, the most recent comp was kind of in January or December, whatever. It sold for $750, 2-bedroom semi. So I told them, you know what? If you're going to use this as your number, like we need a conservative number, let's just use 750 as a very conservative number. And we're going to list at 699. And the range is going to be 750 to 800. Like, I don't like to get people's hopes really high. I'd rather they get so happy and excited on offer night, right? Versus them already thinking they're going to do great. And then like, oh yeah, that's, it's good. Anyway, so on offer night, so anyway, during COVID, they didn't know when to sell. And it's a good thing, like the stars really aligned, because it was a good thing they have 2 kids and trying to pack and prep and whatever. It was a good thing we delayed, because during, in the middle of COVID, like, in April, May, first of all, I don't know if you guys remember, we couldn't even stage. We're seeing a lot more houses that are raw, right? Like as they actually look, it's like, like woman without makeup, or, you know, it's just like, that's what you're getting. And you know, we're seeing a lot more acceptance of virtual staging, whereas before a lot of people like, oh, that's so like deceptive. But now virtual staging was like, oh, that's a great option, from having people coming into your house. And I remember some of my friends that were like, oh, this house is selling. Can you believe they're getting their stagers in and out, and they're not social distancing? And I was like, oh my God, you know, God forbid that I have a listing and I get like, you know, my sign is there and the whole neighborhood hates me because we're not social distancing and the movers are in and out. And it was this whole thing. And you have to be really careful what you're doing, and if you're putting people at risk and people's public opinion and all of that, right? So for me at the time, I was like, guys, I hate to break it to you, but we're not gonna be able to stage. And so a lot of people like, you know how a lot of people are like, well, what are we paying you for? Like, the staging's part of the package. Like, are we gonna get a reduction? So, you know, it's not just staging, right? Like, it's like, come on. But anyway, but the point is, you have to like now say that, you know, you're not just getting staged. But anyway, in the end, we ended up staging, and obviously it looked incredible. We ended up with 100, this is just like 2 weeks ago. We got 112 or 16 showings in 1 week. We sold for 900,000, and it's a 2-bedroom. I mean, the last one sold for 750. So sellers were extremely worried during COVID to sell, extremely. And also they're still worried now because they're like, oh, all these people coming in and out of the house. And what we do is that we say, you know what, we can like get cleaners in after this is all done. You can leave the house. Do you have anywhere to be? Some of our clients that don't have family, don't have like an Airbnb to go to, don't have anywhere to go to, I mean, that doesn't sound great for them to have like showings nonstop at their place and people touching everything. And so some of them, I have clients who have postponed selling because they're not comfortable with getting people in and out of their house, and they can't really prep because they're both working full time and juggling the kids full time. And so they don't really have time to start packing a little bit. It's complicated, you know, but yeah, we were able to sell a few of their houses, you know. I mean, we brought them to the finish line. And also one more thing about what Asif was saying about setting expectations and pricing. And some clients, they're just like, you know what, I'm not sure what I'm going to get, especially with condos, because condos average days on market is like 20-21 days, you know, and it could take longer. So we don't know how long it's going to take to sell. Back in the day, we'd say, yeah, buy, and then we sell in a week. But now it's like, ooh, you know, now we're having a discussion of maybe we should sell first, A, to actually have time to do this, and B, to know how much you will actually get for this property. And that's going to help them in purchasing. So things are definitely still affected by COVID, 100% for people who live in it. Investors are fine if their property's vacant. If the investor has a tenant, good luck. We had a condo listed for 2 months because the tenant did not allow any showings. And we finally had an offer conditional on viewing, and that was effed up. You can edit that out. But he came, he wore gloves. And then the tenant said, when did you wear the gloves? Did you wear them just now, or did you wear them before you came into the building? And so he said, before I came into the building. So he's like, no, you're not coming in. So that was just, yeah. And then within like a week of the tenant moving out, we sold it. But anyway.
Sounded like fun.
So
It was so fun.
So that's interesting. So it sounded like some of your buyers are waiting to sell later because for the whole COVID to pass. And would you say some are listing sooner rather than later? Like, do you see that balance, or a mix, or one leaning more towards selling now, or one leaning towards selling later?
I'm just going to say one thing. One of my clients actually listened, and I was giving them the pros and cons of selling now versus later. And I basically said, there's nothing out there right now. We will get the peak price right now. And then you can take advantage of more inventory and negotiating power later. And so and it's hard for families to do that because they're always worried that, oh, what if I don't find something, but we made sure that the terms were great. It was a long closing, another clause to like extend closing if we needed, but they sold now at the peak. And now they're going to buy, and we're probably going to be able to negotiate because the houses are not like, you know, selling like that. But yeah.
Yeah, and to sum up that question from the stats from the real estate board for June. So new listings were up 2.3% over last June. So we are getting more listings, a touch more than last June, but active inventory is down 28%. It's down almost 30%. So that's a third less homes on the market. We're not getting any new construction coming on anytime soon because of the delays for the housing starts. So I think the sellers that are jumping on right now are capitalizing from the sheer demand aspect of the market. And I think that's going to continue for the next little while. But for sellers that aren't ready, they've had 2 months to get their homes ready. If they aren't ready, they need to get ready right away and get in the market because the buyers are out there right now. You want to take buyers.
Yeah, I think August will stay. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be as hectic as June was, but I think it'll be a lot more active than it is from other years. Yes, people do want to enjoy the summer, but nobody's really going anywhere. You can buy a house from a cottage nowadays. You know, you come into the city, you see the house, you go to your cottage, you send in an offer electronically, and lots of buyers do that. I do think August will still be active. It's still a good time to capitalize on the overall demand. Fall, different story. We'll see what happens.
Great, thank you. So we're almost hitting the hour mark. Just have a few other questions here. We did take some questions in advance from attendees of this conference. So the first question is from Steve that I have here. With over 16 million unemployed Canadians as of April, whom do you see as the new normal buyer? Anybody?
Tough one.
Well, there's a lot of people upsizing, downsizing, and those are the buyers that are out there right now. First time buyers, they're banking on the bank of mom and dad, and they're getting a lot of support from mom and dad to get into the market. You are seeing a lot of people transition from rentals into homes right now, into purchasing right now as well. So it's a pretty wide cross section from what we're seeing. There's not one typical type of buyer. You're still getting a lot of people that are, permanent residents coming over from different countries that are still sending money over to purchase, even though they're not here. Their kids could be here from university. And that's one of the things why rentals are down as well, because all the universities are closed. And if you think about how many students rent from U of T or Ryerson or George Brown downtown, that's a significant part of the rental population, and they've all gone home. What you're seeing is some of the parents sending money so that they are able to purchase, because a lot of these units are empty and they're paying rent in some of these units to come back in September. They may not even come back in September, but they wanted to guarantee themselves a place. Now those parents are sending money over and saying, well, if we're going to pay for an empty place, it may as well be ours. And that's going to be a big segment moving forward, as well as people, do move to Canada. The one thing Canada has asserted itself as through this is how stable we are and how conservative we are with our, how we handled COVID and everything. So a lot of people have their eyes on Canada to move here, send their kids here. And that's going to be a driving force moving forward as well. But at the same time, the people that are within the country, you're starting to see people move from the smaller homes to the larger homes. So the upsize is probably driving the market a bit. And a lot of people that have been cooped up at home thinking, we don't need this much space anymore, we're going to downsize. So the upsizing and downsizing is—
That's in the suburbs. That's definitely not in the downtown. They don't have that size.
905.
Yeah.
I think, to touch on the students, look, I'm not sure if that's going to rebound as quickly as we think, because if this continues into the fall and possibly most likely into the spring, a lot of people are going to be studying virtually. You're going to get some international students that may not come at all. So is it possible within a year's time, I think is more likely that we could start to see that type of sector rebound. And yes, there are parents who definitely want to purchase for their children instead of paying rent. But if rents continue to go the direction they're going now, it may be more attractive just to rent in a year's time, because who knows? I mean, a one bedroom might be $1,600 again. Who knows? And then to answer the question, who are the new buyers? I mean, I think it's a thoughtful question, and it makes you think, well, maybe there aren't as many as we think. I mean, other than the downsizers and the upsizers, other than the investors who are less now, you know, and the investors outside of the country are, I mean, I wouldn't say they're non-existent, but there's a lot less of those now, obviously, with everything going on. Millennials don't, not all of the millennials, some do care about owning a house, but a big sector of millennials don't worry about that as much. So, I mean, that could be a clue to the market possibly slowing down in the future, come a year from now or months from now, if we fall in a recession and if we don't have an influx of new buyers, right?
I think in short, it's the new buyers are, well, like Asif said, also the one who have, you know, parents' money, family money, and the ones who already have money in their current house, like who already own a property.
Very good, yeah.
And they can, you know, and couples, because couples, I mean, they have the luxury that if one person loses their job, there's always like a cushion, versus, you know, single people, they've always had it tough. They're relying on their own, you know, income to buy. And now, you know, they lose that income. They don't, you know, it's harder for single people now to buy. I would say in short, and this is like, it's so simple that it's almost stupid, is that the new buyer are the people who have who are the people who've survived, you know, keeping their jobs. Healthcare, definitely not the airline industry. You know, basically the new buyer are the people that have survived the layoffs, the people who not only have survived, but have zero inkling of losing their jobs, who are so essential, right, in their jobs. I think that's kind of the new buyer, which is also funny because now we see that, you know, when we think about, oh, you know, for new businesses, and we're seeing what are the businesses that are actually resilient, what is actually necessary or essential. Of course, healthcare, but now, you know, it's the same thing for buyers. It's the same thing. Who is resilient through all this are the people who have actually been able to keep their jobs.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
Very good point. So my second last question is, the theme of our conference is smart caution. What does that mean to you?
I think it's, you know, I think it was Guest that said, we're still getting the same amount of offers on properties, but we're not getting those $100,000 or $200,000 over asking offers, because people are smarter now. They're more savvy. They know that the banks have to appraise these properties, and they're taking all of that into consideration. They're taking into consideration their financial picture, whereas before there was a lack of care. It was kind of like car leasing, where they would make it fit their budget. So if you had $500, you try to fit in, you know, how am I going to get this Ferrari in $500? I'll just make the buyback so much because I'm never going to pay it off anyway. That was the mentality with home ownership. People knew that it was just a payment that they were making, and they had no intention of paying it off. Now you're starting to see people be a little bit more smarter with their money and say, you know what, this is how much I need. And you know what, CMHC, what they're doing with the ratios is not a bad thing, because they're making you allocate more money to home ownership, or making sure that you have a forced savings almost. And with appraisals, I was saying it was the same thing. It was almost like a forced saving, because the bank was coming down and saying, your home is only worth this much. And that was making you put more of a down payment down in order to get that house. And you know, you're going to start to see more and more people take that into consideration. So even if it's couples and they say, well, what if one of us loses our job? What can we afford? And that's what you're starting to see in the market right now, is people are a little bit more savvy. They're more careful for sure. And that's going to continue as we head into the fall.
Well said.
You want to add anything, Nasma, or can I?
You go.
Yeah, thank you. No, everything you said is good. I agree with everything Asif just said, but I think I want to add, you need to understand the cost of owning your home, the home you're going to buy. And myself included, many years ago when I bought my house, did not understand that, because nobody lays it out for you. Even mortgage brokers, even lenders, they don't tell you, yeah, this is your mortgage payment. And that's one component of many. So you need to take the time, sit down and understand your mortgage. How much is it going to take to heat that house? The hydro, your taxes, and get an amount, a monthly amount of what the carrying costs will be every single month for that particular home. Taking into considerations, interest rates may go up, hydro may go up, you may lose one of your jobs, like Nasma said, and being able to understand that you can still afford this house even if you lose your job or interest rates go up. So that's one component. The second is to understand, buy a home that you're going to be in the home for 5 or 10 years. So hopefully, if it continues to appreciate by 2% or 3% a year, when it comes time to sell, you've gained enough appreciation to pay for your realtor, to pay for the land transfer taxes, your lawyers, and all the other expenses when it comes to moving. And you then hopefully you have some money left over as well.
I like your answers. How can I compete with this? I'm not competing though. I'm just, it's just the age. You always need to compete. But no, I love your answers. And I don't really have much to add to that, but it's exactly what you said. First of all, the stress test in 2018, I think they did a great job of making sure everybody can afford what they can afford, just in case interest rates went up. I don't like that CMHC thing that's basically saying that, oh, if you can afford, 480 now, you can only afford this much and you're priced out. I don't like that, because when I first bought my property, and I was joined with someone else, with my partner at the time, 10 years ago, or over 10 years, like 12 years ago, our first property, we bought it for $430,000 in Toronto. We didn't have any money. And we were both, like, I'm an engineer, he's an engineer, like, we're both working. And we had like 20,000 saved. And I think all of that was in our RSP. And if I wasn't able to buy back then, I wouldn't have 5 properties today that I can pay for, like, that I'm good. It's not like I'm squeezed, but I wouldn't have that when I am. And that's the beautiful thing about our market, I think. And I don't like that they're making it even worse for people who can barely. Let them get into the market. Do you know what I mean? If they can't afford it, it'll sell. That's it. That's our punishment, is that the bank's going to take it and we're going to sell it, right? But yeah, I do think a lot, people these days are, not just these days, I mean, our buyers are very savvy, especially first-time buyers. And even if they're not, we handhold and we explain everything, just what Gus was saying, the utilities, property taxes, how much are you paying for this? And even, for couples or who might be pregnant, I mean, are you going to have it? Do you think you want to have a baby or not? Daycare, how much is daycare is through the roof. It's like $2,000 a month. I know, because I have 3 kids and it's expensive. So, but yeah, all these extra costs that will come up, and yeah, I mean, the current buyer is very savvy, and I think they've always been savvy. It wasn't just because of COVID. Smart, cautious. They've always been smart, cautious.
Great. So my last question is, aside from us being real estate agents, would you buy or sell a home right now in the current market?
I would. I think, there's a lot of movement right now. There still are a lot of good deals out there. And for the reasons that they're moving right now, they're not financial hardship situations or anything like that. They're moving for a reason, and it's lifestyle. So they're either moving to a condo for lifestyle reasons because they've learned that they can't keep up with a home during this time. They're moving to a larger home for more space. Again, lifestyle choices. So I think anytime that you're making the move, if it's for the right reasons, it's always a good move. And a lifestyle choice is always a good move.
Right. Gus?
Yeah, I mean, personally, no, I wouldn't. I'm comfortable. Are there things that my home isn't perfect, quote unquote, to what everything I need, but with the current conditions, I would wait and pause myself. But as Asif just mentioned, it is lifestyle choice. It really depends. I have people who, I know a couple that's living with 2 children, so 4 people in a 1-bedroom condo downtown, during COVID. If that was me, yes, I would move. So But it depends on the person and taking everything into consideration. Yeah.
I would actually. I was gonna buy a place for my mom recently. So yeah, I agree completely with Asif what he said, which is that it's really, do you need to move? And with Gus, like, I have clients same thing, crammed into a 1 bedroom. If you need to move, you're gonna move. Like if you, especially if you already own, you're buying high. Sorry, you're selling high. You're buying kind of the same price. I mean, your money's in the market. For first time buyers, I also agree with Asif in that you are, I mean, you might be priced out later, like you're losing out on this appreciation, but it could go the other way. I mean, it really depends what the price point at big under 500. I don't see that becoming 300, right? But over 1 million, over 2 million, yeah, maybe. I mean, if you don't need to move, maybe you could wait. But I think the answer is really, it depends why you need to do what you need to do. And as long as you're paying not, you're paying kind of market price. My cousin just bought, like I helped them, but like, I don't believe in just like waiting and not doing anything. I do believe in the market. And I think even if we slow down, it's not going to be like 300, it's not going to be like a 40% drop. Um, but yeah, it's a tough question, but I think it really depends why you need. Also, another thing, I would absolutely sell. Would you sell or would you buy? I would definitely 100% sell. But where's that money going? Why am I selling? Are you going to reinvest it into stocks, or are you just going to have it sit in the bank? Like which is a question I ask people when they want to sell. It's like, where is this money going? Right? Especially for an investor. I mean, what are you going to do with that money? It's just going to sit in the bank doing nothing. So, unless they have like something to invest it in, but yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm going to end the call with just throwing out there, what is the best piece of advice right now for the attendees watching this?
With the way the real estate market has responded to adversity before, this is a good time for you to get into it if you're not into it. And if you are into it, a lot of people in the financial markets are looking at the volatility of the financial markets right now and moving that money into real estate. It's a secure investment, it's stable. And in the Canadian market, you can't really go down. It's a long-term investment. You're in it for the long game. And Gus has mentioned this a couple of times. And if you're, again, going in for the right reasons to make some money in real estate, to invest your money, I would get into the market as soon as you can. And if there are these great deals for condos downtown, it's a great time to scoop those up.
Yeah.
Right.
Nasma?
Can you repeat the question? I don't remember. I was listening to Asif, but I'm like trying to remember what the question was.
What is the one best piece of advice?
Oh yeah, the best advice.
Yeah.
Just work with me, and I'll help you with whatever you need to do. It's custom, but I don't even know who the audience is of this. I don't even know if it's agents or people. I mean, the best advice really is like, you just have to do what's right for you. It really depends. I mean, every situation is different. And that's why it's not like one answer fits all. My mom, I mean, she lives in a place that, neighbors aren't the best, and parking is like, and she's 60. I want her to be happy. I want her to live in a really nice street with great neighbors and for the last part of her life. Am I going to wait and time the market? No, I want to find a good house for her to move there, right? And like Gus said, it's kind of in the middle of Asif and Gus, where it's like, like Gus said, it's like, this house is just going to stay. I mean, if you're trying to time the market and you buy something now, you sell it in a year or two, don't do it. Wait till it's a little more stable. But if you're really in it for the long haul, which is what real estate was initially always about, a long-term game, not short-term, just buy it and it'll catch up to that, appreciation, let's say. You're not flipping it in a year or two. And even flips, I mean, they're great if you're going to live in it, right? If you renovate, you live in it for 2 years, 3 years, whatever, it's great. And anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would start with be patient. And what do I mean by that? I'm not saying take a year to buy, but real estate, and specifically Toronto real estate, has a way of creating FOMO, fear of missing out. Okay, and it gives buyers anxiety. And I have firsthand seen, I'm sure as you all have, that there are some buyers that their search starts, they are calm, they are a certain way, and they miss out on a couple buys, or they see houses getting 15 offers and they get so anxious that they buy the wrong house. Okay, or they offer on the wrong house, and it as an agent, and I hate seeing that. And so when I say be patient, I mean be patient in terms of how the process is working, understand the numbers, take your time to work with someone that's going to educate you with data, and look for the home. Don't always go after that home that's always, the glam home, because there's a reason for it being the glam home and why everybody goes for that. There are value buys available. Believe it or not, even in this crazy market, there are value buys available. But you have to be patient, understand the data, look carefully, have someone that's going to work as a team with you to carefully walk you through everything. And, you may end up paying a little more than you wanted to, but as long as you understand you're going to stay in that house long term, you'll be okay. And sometimes you get lucky and you get a value buy.
Thank you. So that is the end of our conference today. Thank you so much, everyone. I learned a lot about the current market condition. Thank you for sharing your expert advice with us. And we're, yes, they cut this off, but I guess we're done.
Thank you, May. Thank you, Nasma.
Thank
you,
Thank you, everyone. It was so
fun.
fun.